You're listening to Cross Rhythms. I'm here on site at Creation Fest. I'm here with Samuel Jackson Reid. Yep,
That's the one.
amazing. So for anyone that's never heard of you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Samuel Jackson Reid. I am a songwriter, or singer-songwriter, poet based in Nottingham. And I've been doing this for a long time, but trying to kind of find new vocabulary for our walk with Jesus and present it in a way that kind of shows the beauty of the ordinary life. We love a buggy. The beauty of the ordinary life and walking with God even in the mundane stuff. So yeah.
Cool. So we are at a Christian festival. So tell us about kind of your faith journey.
Yeah. So I grew up in a Christian home, had a very classic kind of like, became a Christian when I was like 3-4 years old, and then went to church because my pals went to church, all that kind of stuff. But I have a really strong memory of an encounter with the Holy Spirit at a youth festival, and quite a profound encounter with the Holy Spirit that kind of just sent my life on a different trajectory for a while. That was kind of stoked by a youth pastor who just gathered us, a group of us who were on fire for Jesus, and really stoked that and discipled that. And then went off to university, studied politics, philosophy and religion, and came out at the end of it pretty nihilistic, not really sure if I believed in Jesus. And then again was drawn into a worship retreat by a friend of mine who was running it, and in that had a really sweet encounter with the Holy Spirit, who basically just said it's okay to ask these questions, it's okay to doubt, it's okay to wrestle with me, but can we lay a foundation? And that foundation was essentially love. It was basically God just saying, I love you. Everything else we can work out, and it kind of just set me on another path again, to kind of just figuring it out with Jesus. And so now I just try and walk with him, stay open to the mystery that is God, and love him in his mystery and magnitude. Yeah.
Amazing. So you've already said you're a singer-songwriter. How did you get into music? Did you just kind of pick up an instrument one day randomly, or?
Yeah, no. So my mum is a grade 8 pianist, and she used to teach piano. And she basically was like, my kids are learning instruments. So I think I started piano age 3 or 4. I was bad at it. Yep. And as I grew older, I was more interested in heavy metal than I was in classical music. So I played drums. And then I was playing a battle of the bands at our church.
Okay.
This was many years ago. And I was singing backing vocals and playing drums. And the guy who ran the worship team, the youth worship team, came up to me afterwards and he said, Sam, you're a much better singer than you are drummer. And I was like, ouch. But fair enough. And he invited me to join the worship team. And so I was already interested in music. My family were musical. I was learning instruments. But that was really kind of an outlet, particularly for sort of band music, church music, and then picking up the guitar. I taught myself guitar over that period of time as well. But I've always just had a love, and this came from my parents, really, a love for good songs. So I have really strong memories of learning to harmonize with my mum in the car, listening to the Police, like Sting and the Police. She would sing the harmony and I would copy her, or my dad playing Springsteen records and jazz music, and just so I kind of, even though my mum is a musician, my dad kind of, it was a household full of music, and we were drawn to all of that sort of stuff. And so I think I was an angsty teenager and I needed an outlet to communicate myself, and songwriting was the natural space to do that. So that's kind of the music journey, and I just love songs, and I think really good music makes me cry. I think it's just magic. It's the Holy Spirit, it's all this stuff. But even down on the journey down today, I had some music on, and there's a piece of music a song I hadn't heard for a long time. I just started crying. I was like, this is magical. It's so amazing. So I was just captured by it from a young age, I guess.
Amazing. So as you've already said, you have a faith, and you're an artist. So how does your faith kind of impact your music? Like, is it very overtly? Will people notice it in your music, or is it quite subtle?
I think if you know that that I follow Jesus, you'll find it. I think I don't try and be overt, but I can't get away from it. I think the way that I see it is, if we're talking about God, we're talking about all that is. I think about that the verses in John 1 where it's like, in the beginning was the Word, and through him all things were made, right? So there's something of Jesus in everything, and we can find him in everything. Not that everything is him, but we can find him in everything. And my songs are kind of like that. I think sometimes I'm writing them and I find him later on down the line and go, oh, there's Jesus. I didn't even realize he was in there. I didn't put him in there on purpose. So I think what I'm trying to do is bring, like I said, bring beauty to the ordinary. I think it's the artist John Mark McMillan would call it re-enchantment, or Malcolm Guite would call, who's a poet priest, would say undisenchanting things. And I think that's kind of what I find my music is trying to evoke the mystery of God, the wonder of God, the beauty of God, the closeness of God back into our everyday and our ordinary. And so trying to use that language, that vocabulary, and not be afraid of that, instead of being maybe overt, which I think there's absolutely a need and a place for. Definitely. But I just find myself naturally a bit more in the poetic and in the ambiguous.
So talking about kind of how you go about making your music, are you already described yourself a bit as a poet? Like, are you more of a words person? Are they what come down first and then you have the music come in? Or
I'm my song ideas always start with a lyric, or a concept for a lyric. And there's a songwriter called Andy Squires. I had a conversation with him a few years ago, and he just recommended me a process that I think he still does, which he'll write a poem for a song, and then he'll steal from the poem and draw back things that work back into because a song and a poem are different. Certain things work in a poem that won't work in a song, and vice versa. But for me, that's the thing I'm really going for, and probably I'm more comfortable in. I think the music side, I'm a bit basic. I can be a bit basic, and I need collaboration and friends to kind of come in and say, why don't you try this, or maybe there's a more interesting chord or something. But for me, if it can stand up lyrically, then I'm like, okay, we have a song and we can move it from there. So that's definitely the initial process. It's a lot of notebooks. It's a lot of kind of lyric notes in my phone, and I'll be chatting with somebody, or I'll be walking around somewhere and I'll go, oh flip, there's a line or two, and draw it together. So definitely lyrics.
Amazing. Well, I'm not doing this, I'm a youth worker, so I have a couple of funny, silly questions. Just
sure, let's do it. It's great.
So how many seagulls would you need to find in your house before you realised someone was putting them there?
I reckon 3.
I
think 2. Like 1 is like, oh whoa, a seagull got into my house. Also, I'm in Nottingham, so that would be really rare. But like, I'd be like, whoa. And then 2, I'd be like, okay, there's clearly some way of getting in. And then 3, I think, would start to get suspicious. I'd be like, this is on purpose. Yeah, I think 3.
No, I can see.
Maybe it's a bit quick. Maybe it would be a few more, but maybe 3, I'd start to be suspicious.
Cool. Remake a movie, all Muppets cast. What movie are you remaking, and who's going to be like the one human actor?
That's such a good question. The Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
The one human character. I think it would be really funny, but poor Ian McKellen, to have Gandalf. Like, I mean, he was already, like, when they did the Hobbit movies, he started struggling with all the CGI, but I think it would be so funny to see towering Ian McKellen and all these Muppets running around. I think that would be very funny.
Yes, that would definitely be good. If dogs listen to music, which dog breed would listen to your music?
I think what I would like it to be would be like a German Shepherd, or what are they called? An Airedale Terrier. But I think I'm just saying the dogs that I like. So, I'd say there's a little bit of that. Maybe, Airedale Terrier, something slightly more rugged. I feel like German Shepherds have got a bit more aggression to them, and my music's not particularly aggressive. So, Airedale Terrier, something rugged, maybe a Border Collie, like out there, but like still quite approachable, cozy, all that kind of stuff. So probably one of those 2.
So if our listeners wanted to support you, find you, how can they do that? Where can they find you?
The places I'm most active are Instagram. It's Sam Jackson Reid Music on Instagram, but I'm also all on Spotify and YouTube, not YouTube, Spotify and Apple Music and all that kind of stuff. But I also have a monthly newsletter called A Liturgy of the Hours, where I kind of I keep people updated with what I'm doing, but also kind of longer form writing essays and share poetry and things that Instagram and social media doesn't really appreciate quite so much. So if people are keen, there's a link on my Instagram bio, and that's kind of a really good way to kind of just be really engaged, but in a gentle way, because it's once a month. It's not nothing too intense. So yeah, those are the best ways.
So thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much.